Alright, this is section 11.6, day 1. Today we're talking about finding standard deviation. So on Monday we talked about measures of spread, which consisted of talking about the range and the interquartile range of our data set. So there's two more important measures of spread, the variance and the standard deviation. Variance and standard deviation are both measures that show how data values deviate from the mean. So if we look at our notes, variance is going to be notated as you see it here. It's a sigma squared. And then we have standard deviation, which is just a sigma. So when we're talking about those two measures, those are what we're looking at. So when we're calculating standard deviation and variance, there's a couple of things that we need to look at. We need to find the mean of our data set, so that again was our average or our x bar, whichever notation happens to be used in the problem. So remember that x bar is the mean. We need to find the difference between our data value and the mean, so that's our x minus x bar. We need to square those differences, and then to find the average or our variance, we're going to sum up these squares and divide by our total number of data points for the variance, and we'll see that in example 1. And then if we square root the variance, that gives us our standard deviation. So the variance is the square of the standard deviation. So we're going to see that in example 1. Now, you need to be able to do these by hand, but I'm also going to show you how to do them on the calculator. But there will be a question on your test where you have to fill in this chart and show me that you know how to find variance and standard deviation by hand. And on the test, you won't have these headers that are given to you. You'll have to know which steps you have to do to find the variance and the standard deviation. So we'll walk through example 1 kind of slow so you can see how to do it, and then we'll continue on. So in example 1, we're given these data points. This is our set of data. Now, in all of our other examples, we were ordering our data, so we might as well do it here. You don't necessarily have to, but since we're doing it for finding our mean, median, and mode stuff anyway, you might as well get in the habit of ordering your set. So if we reorder this from smallest value to greatest value, we're going to have 170, 300, 430, 470, and 600. So that's our set reordered from smallest to greatest. Now, the first thing that you want to do when you're asked to find variance and standard deviation by hand is you want to find the mean. So we're going to find our average, or our x bar, of this set. So remembering what we did on Friday to find the mean, we add all of these values up, and then we divide by our total number of values. So when we add these all up, we get 1970, so 1,970. And then we're going to divide by our total number of values. We have 5 values, so we're going to divide by 5. When we divide that out, we get 394. So our mean value for example 1 is 394. So now we're going to use that in our chart later on. But that's the first thing that you want to find. So now to fill in this chart, the first column the header says data values. And again, remember, you're not going to have these on your test, so you have to know how to fill in this chart.
The little X thing means the mean, like the average, right?
What little X thing?
The X with the,
This?
yeah. Was that
Yeah,
the mean?
that's called X bar, and it's just another way of writing the mean. So our first column is going to be our data values. So these 5 data values are going to get wrote in the first column. So we have 170, 300, 430, 470, and 600. So those are our data values that get wrote in the first column. Now the second column, the header says X minus X bar. Well, we know what our X bar is because we just found it here. Your X value are each one of your data values. So in this first box, we're going to have 170 minus 394. So that's your X minus your X bar.
So what is X?
X is whatever data value you're subtracting it from. So this is our first data value, so 170. The next one will be 300 minus 394. So 170 minus 394 is negative 224. Our next one, we have 300 minus 394, which gives us a negative 94. Now we have 430 minus 394, and that gives us a positive 36. Then we have 470 minus 394, which gives us a positive 76. And then 600 minus 394 gives us a positive 206. So these values are our X minus X bar values. So the next column, it has X minus X bar squared. So what we're going to do is we're going to take each one of these values and square them. Now, a negative times a negative gives you a positive. So all of these numbers are going to be positive, even these ones that gave us negative. So we can completely ignore these negatives when we're squaring. Just square 224. Square 94. Because you're going to get a positive number, so you can ignore the negatives when you're squaring. So for our first one, we're going to square 224, which gives us 50,176. Then we're going to square 94, which gives us 8,836. 36 squared is 1,296. 76 squared is 5,776. And 206 squared is 42,436. And again, that's just squaring these values that we found in the previous column. So once you have all of these squared, our next step is to add all of these numbers. So all of the numbers that we just found for squared for this column, we're going to add these, and we're going to put them right here in our chart. So when we add all these numbers up and get a total, we get 108,520. Now, to find the variance was the average of these x minus x bar squareds. So we just added up and found the total, so to find the average, we divide by n size. N size is the number of data points that we have. We had 5 data points, so we're going to take 108,520 and divide by 5 to find our variance. When we divide by 5, we get 21,704. So down at the bottom here where it says variance, or sigma squared, our variance is 21,704. Now, to find the standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So now that we found the variance, we're going to take the square root of it. So for this step, it's going to be square root of 21,704. So when we square root that, we get 147.3. So our standard deviation for this set is 147.3. On the top of the next page, you'll see a diagram, and it shows just what exactly we're looking at when we're talking about standard deviation. So it lets us see how far from the mean, in this case, the heights of the dogs deviate. So the mean kind of gives us a standard, and then if we look one deviation away from it, it tells us whether, in this case we're talking about dogs, it tells us if the dogs are extremely large or extremely small. So it's just a way of looking at our data and seeing where our different data points lie, whether they can be considered in the normal or if they're kind of off to one side one way or the other. Just looking at how far away they are from that mean. So for our next example, we're given a new set. I'm going to give you guys about 5 or so minutes to start filling out this chart. I'm going to walk around because like I say, there will be a question like this on your test. I want to make sure that you know how to find this by hand. So go ahead and start doing that one, and I'll be walking around.